Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us here at Bengals Breakdown. Once again, I am your host, Stone Shields. Appreciate you all for tagging along on day 2 of Cincinnati Bengals training camp. But on today's show, we're going to break down what ESPN had to say as far as a 53-man roster projection for the Cincinnati Bengals. They basically did it for all 32 teams, and NFL Nation's Ben Baby made the projections for Cincinnati. And the Bengals could be looking to add perhaps 4 new starters on the defensive side. So we're going to dive into all that coming up on today's show. But first, make sure you like today's show. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up icon for us because we are in a like battle with our Browns channel. We're hanging in there with them. As you can tell, we're a little bit behind. So when you guys do us a favor and you like our videos, that allows us to make more Cincinnati Bengals YouTube videos. So help us out. Hit that thumbs up icon so we can catch the Cleveland Browns. So this is the first notable cut that ESPN listed for Cincinnati. And to be quite honest with you, I was completely shocked by this. And that is edge rusher Cam Sample. I thought Cam Sample did a really nice job filling in for Sam Hubbard in the 2 regular season games that he started for Cincinnati in 2023. And I think he's a really versatile player because he isn't just a guy that can play outside. He can play on the interior as well. He's a 4th-round pick for Cincinnati a couple of years ago, and he'll be going into his 4th season with the Bengals. Let's take a look at the defensive line room that ESPN projected, right? As far as the left side of your screen goes, that's pretty cut and dry, right? All those guys are going to be making the roster. And then you look over to the right side. I think Kris Jenkins, the Bengals' 2nd-round pick in 2024, certainly is a shoo-in as well. And McKinnley Jackson being taken shortly after Jenkins. I think those guys are for sure on the roster. But then when you talk about guys like Ossai, Johnson, and Carter, I would have a really hard time taking all of those guys over a guy like Cam Sample. I mean, Cedric Johnson, taking him in the 6th round, I think, I don't think you would take him over Cam Sample, right? Like I said, Cam Sample is a guy that really can be versatile for you, and he played well when he was playing for the Cincinnati Bengals. Remember in the AFC Championship game that the Bengals lost to the Chiefs, he had a massive sack against Patrick Mahomes, and he's played in 6 postseason games as well, so that experience has been really nice to see. And keep in mind, this was the highest rated defensive lineman his senior year at Tulane. So this is a guy that, a lot of people had high hopes with, and a guy like Cam Sample, and being a 4th-round pick, both him and Ossai taken in that draft, and we'll see. I think both those guys probably are going to make the roster, but I really was shocked to not see Cam Sample's name in that defensive line room for Cincinnati as far as ESPN's projections go, which leads us to the pinned comment of today's show. Will Cam Sample make the roster? This is totally a Y for me, but I want to know what you guys think down in the comment section. Type Y if you think he will make the roster, or type N if you think he will not. If that ad comes here on YouTube, that's just fine. Take advantage of it. Get down in the comments and let us know what you think. Another Bengals cut that ESPN listed is tight end Tanner McLachlan, of course, the 2nd tight end that the Cincinnati Bengals selected in the 2024 NFL Draft. We did a whole video on McLachlan. I'm really, really high on this guy for Cincinnati, and I was kind of surprised to see him not make the roster. Let's kind of look what ESPN has here as far as the tight end room. Of course, Gesicki's going to be the guy. Saw a lot of videos yesterday with Burrow throwing in balls. That looked really good and really fun, and hopefully we see a lot of that. Drew Sample, the 3-year deal, he's certainly going to be there. And then you get to these bottom 2 guys, and I would have a hard time taking either one of them over Tanner McLachlan, to be completely honest with you. But Eric All, he said he was going to be ready for training camp. Turns out not to be the case, being on that non-football injury list, right? So I'm not fully convinced we will see much of Eric All at all, and I think he could find his way, being on a list in which he can't play for Cincinnati, which would open up a spot for McLachlan. McLachlan, we've talked about him. Again, I said we had that full video where we dived in on him being the rookie that nobody is talking about for Cincinnati. Taking a look at what he did throughout his college career, spent a lot of time at Southern Utah, believe it or not, and really didn't play much, but he suffered a serious injury as well during that time. But then he bet on himself and went to Arizona as a walk-on, and that's when things really exploded for Tanner McLachlan, because he really started to go out there and produce on the football field, and he really challenged Rob Gronkowski for some of the records there at Arizona as far as tight ends go. So once again, looking at what the depth chart looks like right now, I think that tight end 3 spot is what everyone's battling for. And although Tanner Hudson was a guy that I thought played well when he had his opportunities last year, I don't think he by any means is a shoo-in to make this team. I was surprised to see Tanner McLachlan not find his way onto ESPN's 53-man roster. Another notable cut from ESPN is Jackson Carman. Now, I wouldn't say this one is completely surprising, right? Because, he's certainly his career hasn't panned out the way he has wanted to thus far in Cincinnati, right? Being a high draft pick, being taken in the second round in 2021, and really haven't not had an impact on the Bengals team. Really didn't get on the field at all much last year. And we'll dive into more on Jackson Carman in a second. But first, want to give a shout out to our friends over at Game Time, because today's show is presented by Game Time. And I love the summer because Major League Baseball is in full swing, and I love making the walk down the street here in downtown Cincinnati to GABP for a Reds game every chance that I get. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And with the NFL season just over a month away, you can get tickets to watch the Cincinnati Bengals down at Paycor Stadium. And Game Time doesn't just have sporting events either. They also have concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Game Time has so many different features that I really appreciate in a ticketing app. I really love the zone deals, right? You choose the section and Game Time chooses the seat, and they also have that panoramic view of where you'll be sitting at a game, so you know exactly what it's going to look like before you even buy your ticket. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB or NFL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off first purchase. Check out gametime.co for last-minute deals. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute prices, last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So here's what the offensive line room looked like for Cincinnati per ESPN. Again, they're probably going to take 10 guys. Wouldn't shock me if they took 9 here. But if they're taking 10 guys, I feel like Carman could actually find his way onto the roster. Again, left side of the screen here, set in stone. And I think, obviously, Mims in stone as well. And I think Cody Ford and Matt Lee, the Bengals' 7th-round draft pick this past draft, will find their way onto the roster. But when you look at guys like Trey Hill and Deontay Smith, both of those guys were taken in the same draft class as Jackson Carman, and they were taken a lot later than Carman was. So I think he could be a guy that can compete with those guys and potentially find his way onto that team, onto that 53-man roster during the last year of his rookie contract. Like I said, has not really played a ton, right? 2023 was not getting in whatsoever. 2022, okay, you saw some snaps, you saw some productivity. I always mention the game that he had against Buffalo in the playoffs. That really was a massive game for Jackson Carman, really the highlight of his career as a Cincinnati Bengal thus far. But, we'll see. I don't think the coaching staff will want him to be a guy that's out there, but we know injuries happen, and there could be a chance that he gets thrust into action. And perhaps he's made some improvements, and he'll be able to go out there and be effective for Cincinnati. And remember, he's got that slight versatility. They could put him as a tackle or a guard. I think he plays better as a tackle. That's what he's used to playing. Cincinnati tried to move him into that guard spot. But we'll see what happens if he makes the team. But he's certainly a guy to keep an eye on as far as a guy that could potentially be cut. And remember to hit that sub button if you have not already. Season starting to pick up, right? Training camp, day 2 today. Now we actually have actual things to talk about, which is certainly exciting. So for all the latest Bengals updates, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That's youtube.com/BengalsTV. Tycen Anderson was another guy that ESPN had on their list, and Tycen Anderson is a guy that I really like, right? The Bengals draft pick a couple of years ago, but he just hasn't been able to stay healthy, right? Missed his entire rookie season with a hamstring issue, and then last year was playing, I believe he played 7 games, played really well, and was leading the Bengals on special teams tackles during that time, but then he ended up suffering another injury that ended his season. Taking a look at what the ESPN has as far as the safety room goes, top 3 of those guys are locked in, right? Geno Stone, Von Bell, and Jordan Battle. Here's where I have a little bit of pushback. I think Tycen Anthony, the Bengals' 7th-round pick in this past draft, I think he's probably a guy that's probably going to be on the practice squad, right? I would take Tycen Anderson over Tycen Anthony. I just think that Tycen Anderson has more upside. I think he's shown some really, really good things, but you also have that big-time injury concern with Tycen Anderson. When you take a look at his stats, there hasn't been much because, he really hasn't had opportunity to get out there and play a lot of games given the fact that he has suffered so many injuries in his short career. But he's a guy that is really, really good on special teams, and I think that could really carve him out a spot on this roster. I think if you talk to a lot of people around the league, they would say that Tycen Anderson's probably going to make this team. Taking a look at this depth chart, we still have him as a guy that's going to be, the primary backup for Geno Stone. So I think, Tycen Anderson, it's going to be a big camp for him, certainly, and hopefully he can stay healthy through it. But he's a guy that I think should be on the Cincinnati Bengals roster when that time comes. Once again, your opportunity to get involved with our show and get interactive in the comments section. We've given you a couple of cut candidates that essentially ESPN went out there and said these guys aren't going to make the team. But I want to know what you think. Name a Bengals cut candidate. It could be guys that we've already talked about or perhaps some new names as well. Let us know what you think right now down in the comments section. And the last guy that we will get to on today's show is Jalen Davis. And Jalen Davis is an interesting player because, earlier on in his career, he really was kind of bouncing around on different practice squads, but he's managed to stay in the league for several years. And he's a guy that would probably be the backup to Mike Hilton at that nickel spot. That's where really he fits in with Cincinnati. These are the 6 guys that ESPN has making the Cincinnati Bengals roster, and I really don't think you can argue with any of this besides perhaps DJ Ivey, who also, like Tycen Anderson, is coming off an injury. But those first 5 guys, Josh Newton, I think a lot of people are going to see him do great things. The Bengals' 5th-round pick in this most recent draft will certainly make the roster, and then you're looking at your starters over there with Taylor Britt and Hilton. And Turner and Hill obviously competing for that CB2 spot. Taking a look at what Jalen Davis has done, hasn't had a ton of opportunity to get out there, but, he's started to get more playing time over the past couple of years and continues to get these 1-year deals with Cincinnati. And, I think that gives him an opportunity to make the roster, but I would be surprised if he made the roster. Honestly, I am in agreement with ESPN here. At the end of the day, I think Jalen Davis is going to be on the outside looking in.